Our next esteemed speaker is Yogi Rāmadāsa, presenting a talk on the universality of the Vedic path. Yogiji has been practicing and studying yoga for over a decade now. He took his first teacher training in 2014 and has been teaching ever since. He completed his 500-hour yoga teacher training in India and has been studying with many teachers in the Bhakti Yoga tradition, both in the US and India, since 2016. He also has a love for sharing the practice of Kirtan, group chanting of sacred mantras. He loves sharing and practicing the many physical benefits of yoga, all the while encouraging students to look deeper into the more valuable philosophical elements. He believes in living and practicing yoga through applying the teachings to our life, actions, words, food, discipline, and goals. His latest project is running a nonprofit Bhakti Yoga Ashram out of Syracuse, New York, with his wife, and serving the community by freely sharing the wisdom of the Vedas for the benefit of all. So Yogiji, the floor is now yours.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Also, thanks to Dali for a lovely presentation before mine. I'm afraid that I'll bore you in comparison because she had such nice slides and presentation like this where I'm just speaking. But I want to thank her for introducing me to you and Rubaya. Is that how you say your name?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, the honor and pleasure is ours. Thank you.
Thank you all. So I'm gonna present, and what time, because we're starting late, when should I wrap up? Just so I know.
Yeah, so it's 9 up 5 minutes past 9 or 10 minutes past 9 should be good, Yogiji.
Okay.
I mean, 9:30, sorry, 9:30.
Okay, 10 minutes past 9:30. Okay, so we're 9:30. Okay. All right, so let me get started. I'm gonna chant what's called the Mangala Charana, or an invocation to honor the teachers from which I'm gonna try and give you knowledge from. So I'll just do a shortened version of that, and so just bear with me for one moment. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharni Nirvisheshishim Vari Paschati Deshatarni. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we often do that. Why? So that we can attract the blessings from which this knowledge comes. I am not making up any of the things I'm going to share with you today. These are things given in the Vedas. And anything that I may present falsely is my own mistakes. But the Vedas themselves are known to be perfect knowledge, divine knowledge. But even now when modern science tries to touch upon this Vedic knowledge, they oftentimes are confirming the Vedas over and over again. And so Veda itself means knowledge. So the Vedic path is, you could say, the path of knowledge, but in specific, the path illuminated in the Vedas is called Sanatana Dharma. It can similarly be called Jaiva Dharma, or the eternal duty of the soul, or the eternal Dharma that is present to us. So the Vedas have been compiled and brought to mankind over many ages, millennia, primarily through the work attributed to the famed Vedavyas. one author for thousands of years worth of literatures, which is odd. There's nothing like that in existence that at least modern study of wisdom texts can link to. But yet, even he, Vedavyas, he doesn't say that he's created them, but he's just documenting the historical occurrences and teachings of the Supreme coming down to us. And it's actually said it was given to us, and it was given to him through a lineage of guru to teacher coming from the creator of this universe. Now, very difficult for us to be able to fathom that from our very small, infinitesimal vantage point. But when you factor in that modern science has proved that our eyes can see about 0% of the observable light spectrum, and our ears can perceive about 0% of the perceivable sound spectrum, we really we can't speak so factually like, oh yeah, we know that sounds crazy. We have a very limited vantage point. So it's in our best interest actually to connect to a source of knowledge that is far beyond what our senses can perceive. And so the Vedas actually provide that. They provide this this divine knowledge that we can't trace the source, but all we can do is just look at it and maybe even test it and see how it works for you. So like I said, this knowledge is actually said to be eternal. And it's said to come in a divine manner and be given, spread through one initial mantra. You've all heard of this Om mantra. We hear, and this is the original Vedic knowledge. And then from which the Om, all of the sounds can be said to have come from this Om. And so all of the Vedic teachings said to have been able to come from this Om. And so the Vedas are so vast. You're not going to be able to, in your entire lifetime, get through all of the Vedas. But if you can summarize them, and there's a lot of literatures that summarize the Vedas. A very popular literature, Dali quoted it in her past presentation, was the Bhagavad Gita. Takes like a very quick summary and gives like the essence of the Vedas, all in one short 700 text compilation. So we have three goals that the Vedas they ultimately give. These are called sadhyas. And then there's three sadhanas from which one can practice towards these goals. And so the three goals are, first is bhukti. Bhukti means enjoyment of the bodily senses, or you could say the worldly pleasures. The second is well known as a final goal of the Vedas as mukti, which is a freedom from the varieties of worldly suffering and a state completely free. In moksha, liberation from any type of suffering, and a simultaneous achievement of self-satisfaction in that state. You could even say bliss can be experienced there as well. And then the final one is bhakti, which is devotion unto the Supreme or God, or there's different ways to experience that Supreme. So these are the three goals of Vedas. Now, 90% of the Vedas, or that's just a random number, but a large majority of the Vedas is dealing with bhukti, how you can enjoy the bodily senses and the worldly pleasures of this world. A much smaller percentage is dealing with mukti, how you can be free from all sufferings, that actually all the bodily things that we chase in the world actually cause us due to their temporary nature and due to losing all of these things and also losing our very means, our body, to enjoy these things. It causes actually immense amounts of suffering due to our attachment to things that are out of our grasp, really. So naturally, the intelligent through paths of knowledge they actually seek mukti from all of the chasing of the worldly things. But then there's the other one, which is bhakti, which is actually completely independent of the other two goals. And without bhakti, actually, the other two goals can't even work at all, which is interesting because you need a certain level of shraddha. Shraddha means faith. You need a certain level of faith to achieve the other goals, because there's different sacrifices, there's different sadhanas or works that you do, and you have faith that if you do this certain prescription, you'll get the result that you want. And we all have this. A good example is many of you go to work and you have faith in your company and your legal system that if you do a certain amount of work for a certain amount of hours, you have faith that they will give you the paycheck, and you have faith in this system, and you have faith in the college system that helped you propagate this, and so on. So actually, there's a certain level of bhakti that allows you to move forward towards your goals. So we'll talk more about bhakti. That's like Vedanta, or the end goal of the Vedas. But talking about the universality of the Vedas, we have to be a little bit more understanding with where everyone's at, and not everyone's ready to just end their Vedic quest or search for knowledge, or their search for what they desire out of life. So, but the Vedic literatures, and especially the more essential or essences of the Vedas, like say the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavad Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, these point you right, try to get you right towards that end goal of bhakti. But we're going to first talk about the first two goals, which are bhukti and mukti. Bhukti, again, is worldly pleasure, sense enjoyment with the body, and mukti is freedom from the suffering that actually the bhukti causes you. All the hard work and the different things that you have to do that really actually just eventually frustrates us. So anyway, these are goals of the Vedas. And even if you're saying like, oh, all I do is worry about bhukti, that's okay. It has to be realized, that these things ultimately don't give the ultimate fulfillment before we're ready to move on to the next stage, right? So that's why the Vedic paths are here, is so we can make gradual elevation. It's actually all one linear progression, and the end goal is that the soul reaches its highest fulfillment, and I'll explain what that is, but we can't start there. So every soul desires. There was a really nice question at the end of the last class about what it would be like to find an empty mind, and I thought Dali answered so nicely to be like, it's almost an impossible endeavor, because it's the mind, or it's the soul's nature to always be active. And what does the soul do? It desires. So now, what it desires, though, that's different. Now you can actually become desireless from the material platform. You can desire nothing from this material world anymore, but you'll still have some type of desire. You may have a desire to achieve self-satisfaction. You may have a desire to be desireless, but it's still desire. But really what the soul desires is pleasure. Actually, my name is Rāmadāsa, actually. So Rama means the source of all pleasure. And it's very natural for the soul to desire pleasure. It's very natural for all of you to have desires for pleasure. But our unfortunate circumstances, we're looking for that love or that pleasure in all the wrong places. But, there is ways, and the Vedas give you, like I said, majority of it gives you so many different ways in which you can fulfill your desires. And everybody has desires. Every single one of you has desires. So you're looking at a vast compilation of knowledge on how you can fulfill all your desires. It's, like a wish fulfilling, like a philosopher's stone or something like this. So really, study of the Vedas is studying how you can fulfill your desires. And lo and behold, from people who practice it, they work. Now, don't take my word for it. You can see that for yourself. And it doesn't matter what religion you are, what, culture you came up in, what class and we're going to explain that. But you have a body on how you can fulfill all of your desires here. But it tells you actually what the highest desires are as well. So we talked about the first two goals. But one, we have to understand, you have to approach them based on your position in the world. And we have to, one, understand, how did we get into this body, in this country, in this family, etc.? How did we pop up where we popped up, and who and with who we popped up with? So a Vedic understanding is reincarnation, the transmigration of souls. Now, in the Western understanding, that is not accepted, at least popularly accepted, at least by the scientific community or even the religious communities as well, even though there's some, in science, there's a ton of evidence for reincarnation. And even a lot of pop culture, you see a lot of extraordinary happenstances that can only be explained by people being able to connect with memories from past lives and so many things like this. But even in Judeo-Christian religions, you have multiple times of people returning to experience the life again, or even to do God-given service here, back again after returning. But anyway, reincarnation is an accepted fact, and that's the only thing that can explain why you got your lot in this life. Because if everyone, say the Judeo-Christian understanding, at least, or theory they have right now, is that it's just it's just random lot. You get luck of the draw. You could be born with cancer and die 20 minutes later. I actually had a sister who came before me, and she just happened to die 20 minutes after her birth. It's hard to understand, well, why? How could that have happened? But with the understanding of karma from past experiences, it may be, it's easier to accept why things are happening, that there's a reason, there's a level of justification for the world, why it put me in the place that I am, and why it's putting other people and animals and all these things in the places that they are. So this is a fundamental understanding. It's called karma, or the actions and reactions to work in this world. And we're part of a greater loop here of something called samsara. It's you could say, an unfortunate wheel of birth. We pop up, hey, what are we doing here? There's diseases, and then there's aging, and it's kind of an uncomfortable process, and then it's all going towards death. And that cycle is very disturbing to actually all of us in the end. Most of us will be disturbed with the whole aging and death process and disease amongst the way. And then even with birth, the family we got, the understanding who we are, what the meaning of life is, we're all dealing with these fundamental issues. So this is kind of a fundamental background to the Vedic understanding, but it's actually just mapping out reality, what we're all dealing with here. So this is present with everybody. So we have to deal with our karma, different circumstances, families, cultures, religions, trades, education, so on. Based on the previous work we've done before this lifetime, we get what we deserve. It's helpful to know that. And it helps you take responsibility for where you're going to go next. A lot of people just seem to live life off of bad luck or good luck. And, if you want to go for it, no problem. But it was really helpful for me, at least, to understand that, hey, maybe I have a personal responsibility for why my life is the way it is. And yeah, we're reliant on so many factors outside of us, and maybe you could say a divine factor. But you have a role to play. You could try your best, and then it's up to some many would say the Lord does the rest. So this is a fundamental understanding of the Vedas is karma. But within our karmas, the Vedas has a you could say they're called purusharthas, or this is part of the bhukti, and then a little bit at the tail end of the purushartha is part of the mukti. But nothing has to do with the bhakti yet, except that bhakti pervades, it's underneath, it's underlying everything. But the purusharthas are the three, worldly goals of life. And first is dharma, or doing one's duty to the world. Then the second is artha, or accumulating wealth. And the third is kama, which is sense gratification, gratifying one's desires. You could say desire is kama. It's often compared to the lusty desire, but it's not just that desire, but that can also be a part of it. And then the fourth one, which has to do with mukti, is moksha, wanting to be free from the entanglements that the other three get you. But based on one's what's called a varnashram, understanding the first aspect, dharma, is what your role in the world is, what you were kind of born into, you could say, but actually it's what your quality, what your nature is. And so this fits into everyone. We're going to go into what's now been demonized as the caste system, but the caste system is not an accurate portrayal of what varnashram dharma is. There's varnas, or there's classes of people due to your nature, and there's ashram, what's the role of life that you're in. And I'm going to just go through them. There's 4 of them. The first is the truth-seeking and teaching class, traditionally called brahmanas, or knowers of the underlying essence which animates all things, known as Brahman, or spirit. These can be philosophers, scientists focused on the deepest levels of truth, religious mystics, the priestly class, teachers, advisors, so on. They could also be like the intelligentsia. But they were actually those who were committed to the understanding of the spiritual essence of life. Now, that was the traditional brahmanas. And it was said that we should actually take advice from these people. These people should guide society. But these people shouldn't, they shouldn't be attached to wealth and kama and the sense pleasures. These people had the highest levels of truth, and they were able to guide the rest of society. And so the one after that, and we can observe there are people like this in society. There's religious leaders, there's spiritual leaders. There's even scientists who really want to uncover the deepest levels of truth. They have a pure, they're not motivated by material things. There's teachers like this as well. So these people exist, even though it might be far and few between now in this society. But the society that we're part of, this Bhakti Yoga Society, we're actually committed to reestablish or reawaken this order and be the change that we wish to see in the world, with more brahmanas able to lead the world. Not to say the rest of the world's following behind, that's not happening. But that is part of the Vedic tradition, is that the brahmanas lead society. And how do they do that? Through the administrative class, which is supposed to take good advice, and that's the warrior administrative class. You could say that's military, law enforcement. We still have that in our society. It's applicable. People are doing it. Government administrators, you can say politicians, they're less courageous than they were in the past. The warriors would be right on the battlefield. In the past, the great kings and things. Nowadays, everyone's behind the scenes and fighting with drones and robots and who knows, all the type of warfare they're doing. But it's a different thing. But that class is still there, that administrative class. Society still recognizes the need for that. And in this Vedic civilized society model, that's also there. And they take taxes from the people. In the Vedic model, taxes isn't all bad. Even in our model, though, we get taxed even more than the Vedas recommend, which is about a 25% tax. But in our model nowadays, it's even more, and the trend is it's going to get more and more and more. I didn't come here to talk about that. But anyway, they would secure money for the highest ideals that the Brahmins would portray to them through the business class. And these are the money makers, the merchants, the agriculturists, the financial people of the world. There's so many people like this, the business class. And these business class people, and everyone has their nature. Everyone, you might find if you like to make money, you're probably of this business class person, or if you're really focused on that, or if you're really focused on justice and wanting to make sure everything is fair in the world, you probably have this. This is just a description of people's natural natures. This is kind of this universality of the Vedic path. Everyone fits in somewhere. And if you're not a money maker, if you're not a law and order type of person, a regulator of society, and if you're not committed to understanding the highest levels of truth and wanting to study the truth of the world, you'd fit into the final class of the civilized society, at least, which would just be the servant or employee, I'd like to say, class, where we just work for others. We find other people with a vision or maybe a bit more resources than we do, and we just get comfortable in their system. We might have a boss and we work for others, and that's fine. Actually, it's said in this age, we all kind of start out that way. The Vedas say that in Kali Yuga, or the age that we're in, that we're all kind of this nature, the employee class or the workers or artisans. And then there's you could say a socially unacceptable class, the pariahs, the outcasts. Many fill our prisons and psych wards and things like that. But maybe say people with severe drug addiction. It's all kinds of different people living on the streets. Kind of fill out this model here. But they usually live outside of regular society. Why? Because they usually don't follow the societal orders that the rest of society likes to follow. So we find our nature. That's part of, being able to do the fulfill our desires. We just have to understand, what is our nature? And this is a fundamental understanding. So they line up people with their vocations, their careers, and what their nature is. It has nothing to do with birth, actually. The caste system abuse that we know of came solely to do with birth. Because people were abusing, I was born into this, but actually their nature was of a lower order or worse. So we have to find what is our nature. And actually, it's said by, in many places in the Vedas that this is how you measure varnashram. So then there's ashram. Then there's the phase of life that you're in. In the beginning of your life as like a child and going up, you're in student life. You act much differently. You're committed to your education. And then in the next phase of life, you're in what's called family, or you could say your business, and it's called grahastha, and the student life is called brahmachari life. And later on, you have the vanaprastha, or retired life. Or, they would actually go, vana means forest. They would go to the forest and detach more your meditative, your spiritual aspects of life. And then there's a fourth order where it's your complete renunciate. You renounce all material things, and you're committed to just preaching the highest truth that you know. And it's called the sannyasa order. And complete detachment from, for men, it's from women. And for women, you could say it's from men. And a complete detachment from, the opposite gender or the sources of attraction to worldly pleasure, and focus solely on spiritual truth, and spreading that message, even renouncing a home altogether. You're a traveler, constant traveler. This is an order. Not everyone has to take it. And actually, there is Vedic injunction that no one should take it in this age, even though there is still scope for that as well. And our society has many of these people in that. So anyway, these stages of life are all present, and they help you if you know what stage you're in. I'm in the family life. I have a wife. She's wandering around back behind me. You could probably see her. She just turned on the bathroom light. So I have different responsibilities than, say, I did when I was a single student, and I'll have different responsibilities after we have the kids and so many things in the Vanaprastha, the retiree age of life. So it helps. The Vedas give you different recommendations what to do with each order of life. And it's very, very universal. You don't have to, you could be a Christian, you could be any religion or culture, and you can derive great value from understanding this structure that the Vedas give. Now, there are spiritual elements that your religion may disagree with, but you don't necessarily have to take that. And the Vedas don't, you're part of the Vedic eternal religion. Everyone fits in, whether you're practicing the devotional path, the bhakti path through the lens of Christianity or Islam or Judaism, it doesn't matter. You fit into the Vedic model. Mm-hmm. It's not that, oh, I have nothing to do with the Vedas. No, you do. You still fit in. So that's really one of the points of my talk was today, is this universality. So back to the three goals, if we understand our dharma, our place, our varna, it's called, in our ashram, where we fit in, what phase of life, we can know how to do our dharma. And there's a certain level of pleasure in fulfilling your roles to society. We get certain pleasure from that. We please our relatives, we please our friends, so many things like that. And eventually we may realize that that's not going to really give us the ultimate pleasure, but it does give, it helps create, allows you to become more pious or more good-hearted. So there's a certain large section of the Vedas towards doing this upliftment through doing one's dharma. And then there's a large element to how to cultivate more wealth. Actually, so many desires, or in kama, whatever you desire, there's so many elements to the Vedas on how to do that. Different ritualistic worships, different sacrifices, so many things. But because we're pressed on time, the largest part of the Vedas is this bhukti, or this gratification of the body and senses. And even coming with that is this your service to society. But what I really wanted to talk about is that ultimately none of these things can make us eternally fulfilled. And there is an existential question. How do I become eternally fulfilled? How do I deal with the crushing realization that everything I work for is temporary and it dies? It has a death to it in essence. And I'm the body I'm in, and the existence I know of, and everything that I attach to is dying. How do I deal with this? So there's, the next goal of life, which is jnana, understanding these knowledge of the samsara, the karma, all the things I'm kind of explaining to you, is taking you on this like kind of jnana path where you understand that, oh, this isn't going to make me happy. Even my wife is not going to make me happy for eternity. My kids aren't going to make me happy for eternity. Even my job, my career, my service to society, I can't do that forever. Unless you do the bhakti path, but I'm not there yet. But we have to have this understanding that this is all temporary, what we're working towards. So there's the mukti element, where I want freedom from the suffering. So usually they renounce doing so many of these troublesome activities. They renounce their careers, they renounce their families, even they renounce their worldly activities, and they find actually a peace in that. Now, you could get stuck there, and many people think that's the end. That's the Vedanta, or that's the end of the Vedas right there. But we find many texts that wholeheartedly disagree with that, and actually say that realization would cheat you out of the real gift that the Vedas has to offer. And the Bhagavad Gita, this essential Vedic text, which gives the highest essence, would say you're stopping way short. You just when you figured out how to, reach the highest goal, you don't stop there. So what's the final one, which is bhakti? there's all we need is love. There's that song, all we need is love, all we need is love. Anyway, it's true. And bhakti is loving devotion unto the Supreme. And actually, that's my name is again Brahma, the source of pleasure. It's the source of love, is this supreme entity and this supreme being or supreme consciousness from which we all emanate. Now, how do we prove all that? And that's not for me to do. I don't need actually to prove it to you. It's just for me. It's experienced. But many people can experience the interconnectedness, the oneness of all things. And that's actually an understanding in the Vedas, that there's a non-dual foundation, a oneness, but also simultaneously, there is an eternal difference. We all have different bodies, different experiences, different lives. I can't experience what Darren Roberts or Pam Jones or what other names are on here? Axel Zangane. I can't experience what you're all experiencing, and you can't experience what I'm experiencing, but we can all experience like a universal connectedness, which is like what this whole Enlightenment Day thing is about. So this is, walking the path of bhakti. And the interesting thing about bhakti, well, just to give some context to bhakti, it's alluded to as Ishwara Pranidhana in the Yoga Sutras, very elaborated clearly as the highest path of the Bhagavad Gita, shown extensively as the only path worth walking in the Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavat Purana, which is like said to be the cream of the Vedas, or the final Vedic work. After Vyasadeva did everything else with the Vedas, he had one more to do, and he wasn't satisfied with anything else he did until he did the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's very nice. I recommend anybody get into the Bhagavatam. But it's only for those who've surrendered their desires to be the master, to be the ultimate enjoyer, and humble enough to exist in that original Jaiva Dharma. The natural function is to actually be a servant, an infinitesimal servant, to realize our infinitesimal nature in comparison to the Supreme, that we're not the all in all. That last snare of illusion is to think, and a lot of the people who get stuck on mukti, this is what the block, that, oh, I'm God, you're God, we're all God, but especially me, I'm especially God. But that blocks you from being able to take the humility necessary to be revealed bhakti, and to even want to take to the process of bhakti. Because you're like, oh, I'll serve myself, and then you get caught in some form of illusion doing that. But anyway, I'm going to read 3 verses from Vedic literatures, and I'll open it up for some questions, because I'm sure it's a bit short to cover all this stuff. I tried my best. But anyway, this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Agyayaivam gunandoshan mayadishtannapi svakan dharman samtyajaya sarvan. No, it's dharman samtyajaya sarvan mambhajit sacha satamaha. So it says occupational duties are described in the religious scriptures, the Vedas. If one analyzes them, he can fully understand their qualities and faults, and then give them up completely to render service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a person is considered first class. So interestingly enough, we just talked about doing all of our duties and finding our place in society and doing it, and how that actually gets you to the next goals in bhukti and mukti. But in bhakti, actually, it's, it says when you learn about all them, you actually can learn how to give them up too. And become first class is to completely. And so at the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, this great transcendental epic teaching the paths of yoga, there's so many different paths of Vedas. Is the yoga is so prevalent throughout the Vedas, and there's different paths of yoga given to reach different goals. Even bhukti and mukti, there's different yogas you can do. But the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharman pratyajya mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha yishyami ma suchaha. Which is after giving up all kinds of religious and occupational duties, which is like the dharma elements, and the bhukti and the mukti even. If you come to me, the Supreme Personality of God, and take shelter, I'll give you protection from all life's sinful reactions. Do not worry. So he's promising like the mukti. You don't have to worry. There's no. And then finally from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the final verse. Ata pumbir dvija shreshta varnashrama vibhagashaha svanustitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. This is from the first canto, second chapter, 13th verse. Okay, so this is the cream of this Vedic wisdom. It's like the final work of Vyasadeva, that he wanted to really hammer home what the essence of all this was leading to. And it says, O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging their prescribed duties or their dharma according to class divisions in order of life, like pretty much what I just was mentioning, whether is to please the Lord. And use the word Hari is the Lord here, but to please the Lord is the highest thing you can do with your position in life. And that's bhakti. And actually, this is all the great religious traditions will agree with this. And this is how the Vedas is universally applicable, because the highest goal is the highest goal in all the great religions, and that's love and service to God. So now there's so many different ways they do that, and what under the big branch that people consider Hinduism, there's so many conflicting things that don't line up with each other. But you find actually that at the end of the Vedas, it goes back to what all the other religions of the world are saying. It's just the main thing is to please the one supreme. Now, I'm going to conclude here. We all fit into the Vedic model somewhere, whether we see it or not. No matter what religion, family, occupation, stage of life, etc. And you can apply Vedic wisdom to your life, improve your situation, and work towards your desired goals. The final confidential section of the Vedas recommends giving up all the other stuff and living one's life in such a way to please God. And all the religions are attempting to do so. We can evaluate our lives and see what is our internal motivation. Do we want worldly pleasure? Do we want relief from suffering? Or do we want to know loving devotion unto God? Do we want to inquire into the absolute truth? That's where it said the bhakti can begin. The Vedanta, the end of the Vedas can begin. Do we want to know the truth? And even Jesus of Judeo-Christian lineage, he said, the truth will set you free. Oh, and he's right. But the final is the conclusive knowledge that the Vedas offer, and all great spiritual traditions will agree. This final inquiry into the truth. And it all fits into this Vedic model. Any religion, any practice, even an atheist, you fit into the Vedic model. Even if you're like, say, a criminal, you fit into the Vedic model is kind of this outcast of society type of thing. So, whatever unique practices and goals you have, there's a way to perfect it in the Vedic model, and it's universally applicable to anybody if you just check it out. And I'm someone who's derived great benefit from it in my life. I really enjoy sharing it. If you'd like to know more about this Vedic path, we have Bhakti Yoga teachings widely available. I'd be happy to connect you all with. I can maybe chat you guys my email, and you can email me if you guys would like. So there you go. And, we can ship you books. I've got big stacks of the Bhagavatam I was telling you about. We even got Bhagavad Gita. You got sources you can read online. And we have regular online Zoom stuff we do too. So anyway, feel free to contact us. Thank you very much. And I think, right, do we have time for questions, or is it too long over?
First of all, let me thank you, Yogiji. Thank you so much for that beautiful talk. Your talk really brought us back to the arc of this celebration, the Enlightenment Day 2023 event, that we have many spiritual paths to enlightenment and well-being. So essentially, many different paths, diverse paths leading to the same ultimate stop destination. Thank you so much. So maybe we are going to open it up for a couple of questions, and then we'll have you answer a couple of questions from the audience.
I'd be happy to.
So again, just to let the audience know, at any time you can send in your questions in written form in the chat section, and I'll be sure to share it with Yogiji, and I'm sure he will be more than happy to address the questions, which I can then convey to you in written form. I had one quick question. I don't want to take any more of your time up, but if maybe very briefly you could define love in light of the Bhakti Marg, because we have very many definitions of love, but when we talk about love in the interpretation of Bhakti, what would that entail?
Sure. I want to, there's a lot to say about that. So love, you could say, you could help define what love is by what it's not. And love is no conditional motivation for one's own personal gratification, nor even one's relief of sufferings. Oftentimes you could say love is service. So in the, ultimately, where does our love come from? It comes from, like I said, my name, Rama is the source of pleasure. The source of love is the Supreme. So, the ultimate place to deposit that love, or even to go for love, is that place. So, but love, to be defined would be unconditional service. Unconditional service without your own agenda, without your own relief, not business with God. I'll do this, or not even business with others. I'll do this, but there's a condition. I need this. That's not love. Love is unmotivated and uninterrupted service. And actually that's what the Bhagavatam promotes, that unless you are unmotivated in your activity and uninterrupted, that bhakti, you'll never be able to be completely satisfied. So that's the and that's actually why bhukti and mukti are to be given up, because bhukti is all about your own motivations, and mukti is a motivation too, where you want to be free from the suffering, and it's still like that, still that personal desire. But when you shift your desire towards service, I desire to be of service, and purely, and it should come, what's the source of all of the living entities you potentially serve anyway? It should go to the Supreme. So if you shift that to the bhakti, that's bhakti is service, loving service unto the Supreme, then, actually you can be completely satisfied as long as you do just that. Now, the work to do just that, that's a whole nother beast. But yeah, so I would say service would be one of the best ways to answer that, but definitely unconditional, without your own motivations, without your own conditions.
Absolutely. What a beautiful answer, Yogiji. Thank you so much. I feel that it's very important for us to understand what love is, moving away from the limited perception of the senses through which we try to construct and define love. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And let me just repeat how wonderful it was to have you with us today. enlightening us with that beautiful talk. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so very much. We have a few audience thanking you in the chat. It was truly wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm honored. Feel free. You can send me an email if you want to stay connected. Yeah, thank you, Mata, for such a lovely event and bringing so many people together. And yeah, if I can ever be of service to you all again, maybe let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Namaste. Hare Krishna. Until next time.
Until next time, which I hope is going to be very soon.
We'll
Thank
see.
you.
Thank you.